Thank you so much. Thank you so much to be here today for the City event. My name is Edouard Kopczuk. I'm the Microsoft sales leader at ITI, and I have to say I was very, very worried that the room would have been empty today. So I asked Copilot, like, hey, can you give me a few advice? And he's like, if the subject is about me, you should be okay. So I'm really, really glad a lot of people are here today. I want to introduce you to Kree, and he will take it over from here.
Well, good morning, everybody. What a wonderful way to start off the day. So I've got to really start off with a little bit of a story, a bit of a confession. I left Edward and the team last night. I said, hey, guys, I'm tapped out. I need to get to bed. Pretty much I get up very early and I head to the gym. So 5 a.m. this morning, sending my wife a message, and I said, hey, I'm about to head to and my phone auto-corrected it with the Starbucks, right? When I really meant to say the gym. So thank you, AI, for making like my caffeine addiction very well documented to my wife and my family. And thinking about autocorrect, right? If you look at my name, every time I phone through to somewhere and they say, what's your name? Or if I'm placing an order, my name, even on phones, when people are typing it out, gets autocorrected to knee, to three, to cream, to... So it's a variation of those things. Raise your hands if you've ever been personally victimized by an autocorrect fail. All right, now keep your hands up if you believe that AI is going to take over. Well, today we are here to talk about this wonderful, fantastic era that we're living in. It's this dawn of generative brilliance. I am Kree Govender, the SMB leader here at Microsoft Canada, and I have the pleasure of talking to you about this amazing technology where our doodles become masterpieces and our daydreams can be printed out. It is the dawn of generative AI. I love to think about AI as that one friend that we have that is always trying to complete our sentences, but doesn't always quite get it right. It's very eager, enthusiastic, well-read, but sometimes a little too eager about what we're going to say next. But with a bit of coaching and a bit of guidance, he gets better and better attuned to what we're about to say next. So, before I continue, let me just clear up something. Microsoft's a complex place. I think pretty much everybody here has an appreciation for that. And SMB and the way that we think about it versus the rest of the world is a little bit disconnected. So let me create some clarity. 99.6% of the customer base, and this is a global statistic, it's true in Microsoft, of our customers live within what we refer to as our SMB subsegment. So 0.4%. So in Canada, that's around, call it just over 1,000 odd accounts actually sit in the other segments. The remaining 1.4 million really live within SMB. And the differentiation, if you want to think about it, is those 1,000 odd accounts have a managed experience, and the remainder are what we refer to as an unmanaged experience, meaning we go to market with value-added partners very much like ITI. So with that, let's peel back some of the layers. So what are we going to talk about today? I'm going to keep this a little bit interactive. What I'm really most looking forward to are the questions that are going to come at the end of the session. We're going to talk about some of the AI insights and what we've gleaned from some of the knowledge bases that we've tapped into. We're going to talk about typical use cases for AI and how they can impact you, your business, and that of your customers as well. And finally, the fantastic team at ITI have built a great offer for you. And Edward is going to speak about that a bit later. In early 2022, somewhere around there was this boom as it related to generative AI. ChatGPT was exploding all over the place. And subsequently, we launched Copilot, and we made that general availability.
Can I speak?
We really wanted to understand how SMBs are best leveraging AI, what are typical use cases, and quite critically, where are the key concerns for these organizations so that we can better breathe life into our purpose of empowering every person and organization on the planet to achieve more with AI. So we partnered with this organization called AI for SP. And over the last 2 years, they've surveyed over 13,000 organizations and over 12,000 AI apps across the globe. So I'm excited today to share some of those key findings with you in combination and concert with my friend Edouard. What we know about the AI revolution is it is the fastest industrial revolution of our time. AI has reached an astonishing 10% adoption, 7 times faster than that of the PC and 25 times faster than that of the phone. Anyone here want to hazard a guess how long it took ChatGPT to reach 100 million users? Who wants to take a guess? Somebody said a month, 3 months, 4 months, 2 months. 2 months to reach 100 million users. Any idea what the average number of daily users on ChatGPT are today? Average number. It's 200 million. 200 million daily active users on average. That's staggering. 78% of the Fortune 500 are leveraging ChatGPT or Azure OpenAI services. We really are living in a very interesting time. And if you look at that rate of adoption, right, GPT reached that space 4 times faster than the previously faster adopted technology, which is TikTok, or as my 78-year-old dad calls it, Tic-Tac. What's true for this is that this rate of change and adoption is getting faster and faster. And I'm sure you all feel it, right? We went through a phase of where, AI was very much in the background. But over the last 2 years, you cannot open up a news article, you cannot watch anything on TV, or neither can you sit in a session like this without hearing that word proliferated in many ways. So with that, what's created this? There's a force multiplier of things that have happened over time. AI has been around with us for some time. We've had various implementations of it, right? We've had deep neural networks, we've had machine learning, and so forth. But this is the first time that AI is actually able to generate content for us. And that's where the generative piece comes in. And in many ways, people are sometimes fooled into believing that there is, in fact, a ghost in the machine. But it is the force multiplier of these things that have really brought AI to the forefront. And quite critically now, this is no longer just something that we should be thinking about in terms of future strategy, but our customers are actually demanding it from us as well, and they're pulling the future towards us. So back to the research then, and Edouard, there have been some fantastic findings that have come out from this research that we've done with AI for SP. So I'm going to hand over to you, and I'm going to pass you a hot potato because I know this is on everyone's mind, right? Privacy and security are number one. So with that, Edouard, maybe you want to fill them in terms of that.
Thank you, Kree. Yes, I think every company is Canada, worldwide, start to think about Copilot, very exciting about it. But at the end, it's like, should I have better security, a better privacy? And it raises a lot of concerns. I live it on every day at work. Everyone has ITI with all our customers. And so it's okay. You have to understand it's okay. No one's going to die. We'll just help you through that journey to define that roadmap. 71% of our customers worldwide has concerns. So the question is not how to sell Copilot. It's more how we can support you to achieve Copilot. And not at large, just maybe a pilot or maybe just a few group of users where the ROI is actually a benefit for your company. Not everyone needs a Copilot, but few of us needs it. When we talk about organization, you will also realize that a lot of them, 76%, say that they are familiar with AI. AI is a big word. It defines a lot of things. Generative AI It's common. A lot of users use it. But only 13% of the organization are really familiar with AI. And so the question we have is how we make that familiarity an adoption. So moving forward, we'll talk about how do we use AI, like the different business case we have. 59% are using AI in a company, but on that 59%, only 37 are part of a pilot phase. We consider pilot from 1 to 10 licenses. It's usually just when you start to explore the product, see the benefits, using on different tools, could be even linked to a database, a CRM. It's really a pilot phase. This is basically where we are today. 15%, it's not a pilot. 15% is just, I open Bing, Copilot is integrated, it's considered as a usage. Does the user really use it? Absolutely not. So we can use it through Outlook, PowerPoint, but at the end, it's integrated. So 15% of that 59 just represent an app integrated with Copilot, but maybe not used it. And finally, only 7% within the organization are really using the tool with the full features. And when you compare 7% to 59, you realize that there is a long way to arrive to just 50% adoption in your different companies. Which is good, is the result on satisfaction is pretty high. 78% of users who are using Copilot and generative AI are really satisfied with the results. Kree mentioned it a bit earlier. You have to train your users. Your users have to learn how to write a prompt, how to teach your machine learning. At the end, that result will just be higher. But we have a huge concern, and Kree, you might help me on that, is how will you make that regulation also about the government that I think Deloitte just released a newspaper a few days ago saying that the company are asking for government more regulation. So I will hand it to you to talk a bit more about that.
Yeah, and so guys, regulation is critically important. I've heard people speaking about this aspect of when we released nuclear technology, there was regulation around it. Anything that has potential for extreme good and also extreme bad, we need to have regulation around it. So from the Deloitte survey, 74% of people actually want government regulation. When I speak through the lens of a Microsoft representative, this is something that we are calling for, as well as many other organizations and OEMs, right? They want government regulation because it is the first time that we have access to a technology that will fundamentally shift the way that we live and exist, not just in the business landscape, but as citizens of this planet. Who's familiar with Gavin Newsom? Right. The governor of California. And the reason why he becomes topical right now is because just a few weeks ago, there was a bill that was put in front of him, which was SB 1047. And it was the bill that was designed to govern and regulate AI usage in the state of California. And a few things happened. Quite notably, just before that got passed, we saw Elon Musk and X decided to move headquarters because they didn't want to be subjected to that. They had other reasons that they put in as well, but that was one of the key things. Why this becomes important is if we look across to our brothers and sisters in Europe, there's such tight regulation right now. Pretty much up until maybe a few days ago, the iPhone that you would buy in North America versus Europe, one was pretty much infused with AI and the other one was where all the AI functions were muted. Let's think a little bit further in terms of this, right? What does it really mean? Number one, we need to have regulation that actually spans across the globe. We're in a world right now where we can't really agree on many things as nation or sovereign states. So how do we ensure that the likes of Russia, China, the East, as well as the Americas, all come together around a regulation that we all take seriously and adopt? Because if we don't do that, we're going to have this factionalized approach to things. And if you think about organizations that are in Europe right now that are building generative AI or AI technologies, they're frustrated by the rules that are in place because they're not allowed to go to market. It is hindering competitiveness, number one. It is stymieing innovation, and it is creating factionalization. So this aspect around regulation becomes absolutely critical. It goes hand in hand with the topic around privacy and security as well. So with that, Ed, I'm going to hand over back to you again, because this is a fascinating piece. Most of AI adoption, when I read the study, this was one of the things that really piqued my interest, is actually being driven by team members and actually not from management. Why don't you share a little bit more in terms of that?
For sure. Yes, team members. Most people in the organization are team members, and they are driving the adoption of generative AI. 60% of them are generated by team members. The study you shared, Kree, is interesting because basically when you check about how many people, let's say on top 100% in an organization who are using generative AI, I would say 60% of them are team members. And a lot of them bring their not own device, on the AI. So if you are an IT director, you have an IT team, you try to control through Intunes your different products, pilots, and you want to control that. You want to, let's say, I want to use Copilot. So you put to 10, 15 users. You don't know if the other one are using ChatGPT because they don't have access to that technology and actually can have a security breach in your organization because of that. So no matter what will happen, if you want to take the change or not, your team members are doing it. They are using generative AI. Powerful tool. It helps a lot. Kree will share a few numbers after about a few use cases, the main one we have. Also for you to understand that the wave is here, so it's how to surf on the wave and not just be under it. 80% of SMB employees bring their own AI tools to work worldwide. That's huge. Because 75% of them are not controlled by the company. So this is where ITI can help as well to provide that roadmap to you, to find the good security path for your own organization and find that roadmap for you to unlock the potential of Copilot. So now that we saw the different numbers, we want Kree to also share a bit of his experience about use case, and I give it under you.
Thank you, Edouard.
Oh, I have another slide.
Go for it.
We still have time.
Sorry for that. This is also important.
It's very important. It's heartbreaking, actually. As Kree said, SMB customer, we talk about Microsoft subsegments, so basically 99.6% of the customer worldwide are considered SMB. They don't realize that they can be targeted for cyber attacks. And because they don't think so, they are vulnerable. 70% of SMB customers who receive a cyber attack close permanently their door. It's hard. It's very hard. And what gives me a lot of frustration is when I have customer conversation about security, oh yeah, don't be worried. I have a firewall and an antivirus. Well, good for you, but it's 1% of the security stack that you can have. And all that different customers who close doors it's after fact. And the fact to be reactive when you have a cyber attack is too late. So you need to be proactive on that. It doesn't mean that you have to deploy all the security features, just the main one, at least to keep your business under the risk to close. The result is easy. Small, medium business are the main target on cyber attack. 43% are dedicated to them. For the simplest reason is they don't think they will receive an attack. But there are so many of them, few employees only, not specifically the IT team, and so many projects on the go, that is not a priority. We'll see. So at the end, security is really important. We'll talk a bit about privacy as well on a few other slides. Security and privacy are the two main things to do before to move on with Copilot adoption. This is what will help you to be calm and confident about the deployment of that tools, who will search the data wherever it can if your governance and data classification is well done. So normally now, it's over to you, Kree.
Perfect. All right. Okay, so let's talk about use cases, because this is the question that comes up most amount of times. It's like, this is fantastic. Where do I start? And the truth is, we push out a lot of content as Microsoft, as do many of our competitors as well. And one of the things that customers often say to me is the volume and veracity of information that we actually push out, it isn't actually empowering. In many ways, it's quite frankly something that ends up paralyzing people, because it's like, there's so much, where do we start? So this study went and looked at where's the best use cases for AI. And so there's no surprise, number one will be business optimization, like summarization of emails, taking notes in meetings, generating PowerPoints and Word documents and so forth. Wonderful, fantastic, but what else beyond that? I'm not going to read through all of these. What I'm rather going to do is I'm going to plant an idea in your minds. Who here has a customer? Pretty much everybody, right? We all have customers. So think about this through the lens of customer service. I was in South Africa earlier this year, must have been around April, and I picked up my phone, and that's the image that you see there, and I was using Bing, or Copilot through Bing, and I was saying, hey, what's the weather like in Johannesburg today? And have a listen to this. Have a listen to this. No?
The current weather in Johannesburg is mostly cloudy with a temperature of 15 degrees Celsius. Please be aware that there is a weather alert for disruptive rain with potential flooding, which is in effect until tomorrow morning.
So what was really interesting to me about this is, here I was in a different part of the world, and I was being spoken to in an accent that was well attuned to what I'm used to, right? Perfectly delivered for the location that I was in. I'm like, oh, this is very familiar. So it was in a perfect South African accent. Landed back in Toronto. I pulled out my phone after I phoned my mom, and then I was like, what's the weather like in Toronto? And if I had to do it right now, you'd hear a perfect North American female accent delivering the same set of information. We are starting to match things for people on customer experience. So this got me thinking a little bit. So I am a little bit of a geek, and I went into Azure Speech Studio, and I went and I built out something, right? What this is showing you is I took a 30-second clip of my voice, and I used our software to clone my voice. So with that, here's a piece of text, and you can choose like different voices that you want. Even if I wanted to take that and convert it into a different type of voice altogether. So you can choose things like, I want a male voice, female voice. This is the particular accent. I want it to be young, middle-aged, old, pace of delivery, thickness of accent, all of those factors combined. So have a listen to this, right? You've heard me for a little bit, so I think you get a feel for what my voice kind of sounds like. But have a listen to this, AI generated. generative AI and voice cloning. Because why hire a voice actor when you can just deep fake your way to perfection? Pretty convincing, right? I know. I shared that with my wife as well, and she was like, oh my God, this sounds like you. So I'm thinking of use cases where I can have my AI bot listen and actually respond to her. Right? Imagine that. Like, I'm going to patent that, by the way, guys, because the number one complaint from all wives is like, you don't listen to me. But like, jokes aside, think about this through the lens of customer experience. The other day, we were talking to the Bereavement Authority of Ontario. You think about these elderly people that are going into the latter stages of their lives. Imagine them phoning through to a call center and engaging with a 20-year-old. Not that a 20-year-old can't be empathetic, but they want to have a resonance in experience, potentially somebody who's better matched for that phase of life. Imagine you've got an AI bot that perfectly matches to that person's language, to that person's accent, to their age. You know, it's one of the key things we learn in sales is about mirroring your audience in many ways. But think about that deep type of connection, what that will do for people in terms of customer service. So the face of customer service as we see it will be changing. And these technologies are available right now and they're being implemented right now. There are companies like Sierra where you have generative AI assistants that you only pay for calls that are resolved through the actual agent. If it gets handed over to a human, you don't pay for it. So even the business models are changing. A very interesting time. I really, really love this slide because the IDC shows us that where we are right now is in the space of narrow AI and we're moving towards like this widening AI phase. I like to refer to these as the AI primitives. A primitive for me, if you think about it, like the day that we had a mobile device, I still remember the first time I had mobile on my actual device. I'm like, oh my God, I can actually check my email, I can surf the internet with this. And then the next primitive came in, which was a GPS, which is like, that's pretty cool. I can check where I am on a map. And then you take these primitives and you combine them, and out pops something like an Uber. And we're really in the primitive phase right now. So the widening AI technologies that are going to come are going to be this force multiplier of these primitives that really pop out with these super interesting use cases. And I'm sure that you're going to see more and more of this coming at this very rapid rate. At the bottom, you see some of these flags. And why these flags are important is based on some of the research I've been doing, I'm seeing the type of investment that's happening. In Canada, as we know, Justin Trudeau announced $2.4 billion for this fiscal year to be injected in terms of AI. Quite literally a few days ago, there's a federal fund, you've got one for Ontario, for various parts of the country, that's unlocking like close onto like 2-point-something billion dollars out of each of those, right? Huge investment. I'm going to read a few stats from here because I haven't remembered them all. But in Singapore, Singaporeans, the age of 40 and above, get to go and do free training so that they can build AI skills to empower them for future jobs or jobs that haven't necessarily been created just yet. Many governments are talking about UBI or Universal Basic Income to help support, because it's the first time we're going to see massive disruption at a white-collar worker level. Japan has launched Atashi, which is an adaptive learning platform. Across in the US, all the K-12 learning is now infused with AI, underpinned by Cellcon's Conmigo. Italy has set aside $30 million. South Korea, $10 billion. France, $5.5 billion. And just recently, Brazil has set aside $4 billion. All around unlocking AI potential and upskilling their citizens. They are preparing their citizens and their countries for this wave that is coming. How we as Microsoft see this is a 15% increase in GDP. 15% doesn't seem like anything significant until you start to quantify that. And that's about $15 trillion of GDP that we do not have today. You know, I have a customer and I loved the statement that he shared with me, and I will use it unabashedly. And he said, having access to this type of technology is the equivalent of giving a marathon runner a bike. It is that much of an unfair advantage. Profound statement. And it's not just a Microsoft point of view. If we look across, you can see the likes of PwC, Deloitte are all seeing similar sort of things. So it's not this myopic internal echo chamber, right? But what is really interesting here is that OpenAI has just completed their latest round of funding, right? The likes of Microsoft, Apple, and so forth stumped up billions of dollars, and their evaluation now is soaring north of 150 billion. xAI, this morning I read, are in their latest round of funding where Elon Musk wants to drive their valuation up to around $49 billion. So it's huge. Companies are like stumping up massive amounts of cash. This is too big to fail. So when people say to me sometimes, hey, this is just a hype cycle, I want to share something that hopefully reframes this for you and debunks some of these myths. Number one, we're in the tech space for sure, and we're known for hyping up things. We got the cloud right. NFTs, no, not quite. A metaverse, definitely not. Meta just shut down their metaverse development area. But when it comes to AI and generative AI, that's not the case. I didn't see governments and the likes of Deloitte and PwC rushing out and spending billions of dollars building metaverse and NFT practices for their citizens, but they are doing it for AI. So if there's ever something to take away from this call or this session right now, sorry, too many Teams calls, it's that, right? That it is a time for change. So let's move on and delve a little bit deeper into how we see this as Microsoft. I'm not going to read through all these stats, but needless to say, I think it was probably maybe in the 90s at some point where I could confidently say I've answered every email, I've replied to every single message, and really had control over my life. I don't think anyone does today, just because of that aspect of the amount of volume and the veracity that I had mentioned earlier on, right? We kind of feel like we're in this constant catch-up. And this is where Copilot can genuinely help. So I'm going to share with you some very key things in terms of how I am genuinely able to get back an hour every single day in my life. Like genuinely, hands down, minimum I get an hour every single day. So how does this happen? The beauty about Copilot is that it's built into all of our apps. It exists seamlessly across the Microsoft ecosystem. You can even expand the service boundary to interconnect with other technologies like Salesforce.com, even documentation that you may have living in other cloud providers as well. So it's not just limited to the pure Microsoft ecosystem. But there's a big sense of familiarity with this suite of products. So therefore, your AI journey starts off in the comfort of technologies that you're very used to. And that's a big plus. And whilst I'm now at an hour a day, it didn't actually start there. And I want to share with you guys 3 practices of power that you can take away as you start on your AI journey. The first thing is, number 1, I set daily reminders for myself. In my calendar, I had something in the morning, at midday, and in the afternoon to say use Copilot for meeting summarization or generation of ideas or whatever it may have been. Number 2, the other thing I did was I took Post-it notes. I stuck them on my keyboard, and I stuck one on my monitor, and it said, what would Copilot say? Because I needed to change the habits that were so ingrained, right? Nothing's going to drive you towards Copilot. It's just going to live there as an icon. What's critical is changing your behaviors and making this a fundamental part of your being. The number 2 thing, as I said, what would Copilot say? I stopped every single interaction. I'm like, what would Copilot say to this? And I started to move it. Even now when people ask me questions, they're like, hey, Kree, do you know where I can find X, Y, and Z? I said, did you ask Copilot? I'm like, only come to me if you've asked Copilot first. Not because I want to be difficult, but I want people to change their habits and the way they operate. And the final thing is I set a very low baseline in terms of what I wanted to achieve. 11 minutes per day, approximately an hour a week. And the fun thing about this is I was able to achieve that. And as I started to build these practices, I started to learn that my prompts were getting better. The average length of a prompt, by the way, first time anybody pretty much uses any sort of generative AI technology. Anyone want to take a guess how many words are in the first prompt? 4 to 6. It's the same amount of length that we put into a search engine. So what happens? You say something very vague like, help me write an email, and you get some weird response because the AI is generated to try and please you, so it'll hallucinate anything at once, right? That's what it does. It's a very interesting time. There was a time where we were very critical of AI, saying, they're not creative enough. Now we're critical because they're too creative, right? But that piece aside, you've got to give it a lot more context. It's like if you're sitting with the smartest person in your room, right, in the world. Like imagine that's a modern day equivalent of like a genie in the bottle. That's what it is. And if you had to be like, write me an email, it'd be like, okay, who do you want to write the email to? How long do you want it to be? Give me some context. So I'm going to share with you something that's going to make every single one of your prompts better. At the end of everything I write, this works like 99% of the time, I put this in. I say, before you answer, what other information would help you provide a better answer? And it will stop and it will say to me then. So if I said, write me an email, it's then going to go and say, okay, Kree, who's the email intended for? Is it a business email? Is it a friendly email? What type of tone do you want? How long should it be? What do you want me to reference in here? So it actually helps you. And through that process, your prompting gets better. And through that, you derive much more value out of it. And that genuinely is how I'm able to save, at minimum, an hour every single day. So one thing really remains at this point in time. And hopefully, if anything, between Edouard and myself, we've created a moment of change for you in terms of your thinking. It is an absolute imperative right now. There is no shying away from this moment. The wave is here. And in Ed's words, you can either learn to surf right now or be subject to the wave. The choice sits with you. Change can either happen with you or it can happen to you. You have an active choice in this. The beauty about this is, as Microsoft, our first mover advantage with OpenAI and the deep partnership we've had with them for over 8 years cedes to you as your first mover advantage. It will allow you and your businesses to remain agile, competitive, and transformative during this age of AI, and relevant. Critically, we have amazing partners like ITI, that have industry solid skills. They've walked this journey for a long time. Deep practices in productivity, Azure, AI, data, security. There are 1.4 million customers in this SMB segment. I'm very deliberate about where I choose to spend my time when it comes to the partners that are able to bring our promises to life. ITI genuinely has the skills and capabilities and the track record and customer testimonials to boot. They've been around for a very long time, and you are in exceptionally good hands with them. And with that, I don't want to steal the thunder from Ed, but he's got a fantastic offer that I think you should all take note of.
Thank you. Almost the end. Don't be worried. So what's next? After that almost 45 minutes presentation, we are at what will be your next move? Like, will you take the wave or you will be on it? Basically, it goes to two main things. The first one is how we can help you to define your right AI foundation. So for that, we have an amazing business unit leader, Vadim, I don't know if he's here, who lead the practice, the data and AI practice at ITI. And so we have that co-funding offer with Microsoft. That's also why ITI is one of the prioritized partners. So Microsoft invests in us for us to invest in our customer. So we have that kind of assessment who are free to help you to define your roadmap about AI. What do you need in your organization to host your first data lake, to enable Fabric, to enable Copilot for Fabric, to use better your Power BI, not just as a visual tool, but as a BIA tool? That's the first offer we have which is co-funding by Microsoft, and the second one, it's really more about Copilot. Yes, of course, we can help you to adopt Copilot, but there is step before. And two main are security and compliance, privacy, if you want. So again, how will you start your journey for Copilot with security and compliance? You need to know human error, obviously. You need to know if that person, that user, have access to the right SharePoint. Because if by mistake he has access to another one that he shouldn't, Copilot will find information there. So that different assessment will help you to analyze the different SharePoint, the different users, the different rights, for you to have that roadmap about security. Same about data governance, Purview. It's big, Purview, it's a big engine, but we can define it. We can target it, what you really need to deploy to achieve what you want to achieve within Copilot. And so we will be with Kree at the Microsoft booth, at the ITI booth with our teams to answer all the questions you can have. We still have, I think, I would say 5 minutes for open questions. So if you have any question, you can just go to the mic and ask it because it's recorded and live translation, so it will be easier for everyone.
All right, question time. I'm sure there must be questions. Or are you guys searching for everything on Copilot? Yes, sir. So you're referring to the aspect of like hallucination as a piece? Is that?
I'm referring to the information, like let's say from the Copilot compared to different AI tools. Slightly different.
Yeah. Yeah. So the question you're asking is about deterministic technology. So what do I mean by deterministic? Every piece of technology up until right now that we've used is very much, we're able to tie together how it got to the output. Like if you go into Excel and you've got a row of numbers, you know that it has to give you a particular answer if you're going to sum them up, right? That's deterministic. Generative technologies are not deterministic in nature. It's like asking a human being today, hey, like, tell me about the event that you attended. You ask them the same question tomorrow. There will be nuances of the things, there will be lots of similarities. It will not be the exact same string of words that people use. So to the question, if I'm getting the essence of what you're asking me, it's like, hey, how can we ensure that what Copilot's producing is very much connected to what ChatGPT versus Llama and so forth? You can't. You can't. And because it's based on a vector-based search, and the way the model works is, it's a prediction for the next word, and then the next word based on that, and so forth. You're talking about language models that have reasoned over every single piece of information that human beings have created, like written text, video, everything. We've consumed everything. We're at the stage where we're using large language models to create synthetic data right now to train the next version. So you will never get a deterministic answer that's 100% correlated across the models. Truth, yeah, and it depends the type of questions that you're asking, right? So if you look at GPT-4.0, that model is specifically designed to reduce hallucinations, number one. Number two, it's particularly good at doing like mathematical functions and so forth. So it depends. If the context of what you're asking is something mathematical or statistical and so forth, leveraging a model that's designed for that, like 4.0, is probably much better, or not even probably, is much better than using a general model like GPT-4 as an example, or Turbo. No problem. Great question, by the way. Anyone else? I think we're good.
We're good. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much. If you guys we will be at the booth, so welcome to come and stop by and we'll answer some questions.